Hi, I'm Mark, and today, as promised, I want to talk about short-time Prime Minister Liz Truss' very own Partygate affair. Because Britain's ex-Prime Minister Liz Truss has to pay a hefty fine. She's said to have held parties at the State Department residence in the summer of 2022. Items may have been lost in this process even. Parties seem to be one of the things of British prime ministers and something they love, even if it gets them in trouble. Partygate brought negative headlines to ex-Prime Minister Boris Johnson while he was still in office. A garden party in the corona lockdown was followed by a birthday party also in lockdown. And instead of appearing for a meeting of the National Crisis Team in the summer of 22 due to the heat disaster, the Prime Minister, who was already leaving at the time, threw a private party at the luxury country estate Chequers. Even at meetings under Liz Truss, there was a party atmosphere from time to time. That was reported by the Daily Mail, among others. Around the summer of 22, when Truss, still British Foreign Secretary at the time, was preparing for a post as Johnson's successor in Chevening House, the department's official country residence. A source told the Mail on Sunday that Truss used Chevening House as a kind of mini number 10 for meetings with her inner circle, which often turned into parties in the evenings. Cleverly. I must have cleverly in my head everywhere. 10 is the number of the seat of government on Downing Street, of course, and the meeting is now set to cost the ex-Prime Minister £12,000, but she's resisting it. The Cabinet Office objected to taxpayers paying for the summer parties, as they call them. According to the regulations for ministers, office holders have to finance party or personal events in official residences themselves or through their party. However, Truss claims the bulk of the bill relates to official government business for which she should not be held liable. The latest bill contains a mix of costs to her personally and costs of official government dealings with officials including Cabinet Secretary Simon Case and senior officials from other departments who met in Chevening during preparations for the transition, it said. Truss spokesman also referred to a public service code that officials would violate if they accepted entertainment during the campaign. Truss, on the other hand, has always paid for personal guests herself, they say. Well, in addition, the ex-Prime Minister wants to pay for items that are said to have disappeared during the meetings. According to the central government agencies, these are bathrobes and slippers. Yeah, it reminds me of some hotel stuff here. And Truss therefore asked for the cost to be invoiced separately. Another unspecified source close to Truss told the Mail on Sunday that the politician only received the bill for August 22 earlier this month. They have requested an exact invoice and want to pay it. Just to remember, British Prime Minister Liz Truss resigned after just 45 days. She kind of carries the red lantern with it among British prime ministers. But historically, this is not a record. Even that she didn't do right. In a tabloid competition for shelf life, Truss ended up losing to an iceberg lettuce. However, if you look at the list of kings and regents, presidents and heads of government with particularly short reigns, you can hardly help but congratulate her. In direct comparison, things went relatively well for Truss. Most of certain colleagues did not survive their separation from office even. Of course, because before the introduction of democratic procedures, changes in power were traditionally associated with pronounced heaves and steps. The number of short-term rulers is surprisingly large, with many just lasting a few days or even hours. The French King Louis XIV stands out here. He renounced his royal dignity on August 2nd in 1830 immediately after his appointment. His reign is given as around 20 minutes, an impressive record. He spent the next 14 years in retirement and exile, first in Edinburgh, then in Prague, and finally in sunny Slovenia. And it wasn't Louis XIV, it was Louis XIV. As a rule, such rapid changes of power were much rougher, even if the protagonist survived for the time being. Tsar Michael II reigned from March 15th to 16th in 1917, but didn't really reign. He was never regularly enthroned. His tsardom remained theoretical because his predecessor Nicholas II abdicated under pressure from the revolting masses, and Michael, who was able to successfully hide in his room for a good day, was in principle a Tsar until he was found the next day and also had to abdicate. And something similar happened, of course, under Great Britain's rulers. Queen Jane Grey ruled the country from July 10th to July 19th in 1553, earning her the nickname Queen of 9 Days. She was deposed in favor of Mary Tudor, who reigned as Mary I for at least 5 years, and she made history as Bloody Mary because of her, let's say, very definite treatment of non-Catholics, with her brief predecessor having to experience that as well. Mary had Jane, as was the customary at the time, first interned in the Tower of London and then beheaded on February 12th in 1554. Truss also cannot match the brevity of King Ethelward's reign. The Anglo-Saxon King of Wessex survived his father by only 16 days in 924, and they were buried together. But how did he die? Well, one does not know. The best-known British transitional monarch today was Edward VIII, who reigned from January 20th to December 11th in 1936, almost a long-distance athlete among short-term rulers. He had to abdicate because of his relationship with the divorced American Wallis Simpson. One would have to explain to today's royals why that should be a reason for the loss of the crown. Well, other times, other customs. Few of her direct predecessors were as short of breath as Liz Truss. It's almost unfair that Prime Minister Charles Watson Wentworth wrote history with a reign of only 96 days between March and July 1782. Firstly, he died in office. Secondly, he had been Prime Minister 17 years earlier and had managed it for at least 382 days. That wasn't so bad for the time. English governments at the time were much more, Italian-timed than in previous decades. On the other hand, Truss can no longer beat her colleague Arthur Wellesley, who took over the government of Great Britain on November 17th in 1834 and resigned after only 22 days on December 9th. And he probably wasn't too sad about it. He already knew the job. He had governed 6 years before and had no desire for a second term. The king had appointed him prime minister of a minority government, and in other words, he had been condemned to office and dignity. Wellesley himself passed the government back to his buddy Robert Peel, who served 2 consecutive terms, 129 days in the first run and 1765 a few years later. And even if she didn't set an absolute record with the shortness of her reign, Liz Truss definitely carries the red lantern of the bottom of the table. Her tenure was the shortest among Britain's prime ministers who were forced to leave office against their will. At the other end of the spectrum is the first of all prime ministers, Sir Robert Walpole, who reigned from April 1721 to February 1742, was the Helmut Kohl of the British political history. However, even the persistent squatter from the Palatinate could not match the 7,618 days of government of the Englishman. Kohl only ruled 5,870 days. That means exactly 10 days longer than Angela Merkel, or, hard to mention that, but 130 times as long as Liz Truss. But the most part of the video was more for the fun part and not about Liz Truss. But the beginning of the video where I was talking about what's happening now at Chevening House, that is something you really have to say, well, did you expect something else? But never mind. But I thought this little list of rulers was a little pause from day-to-day politics at the moment, and so I decided to do it for once. Even if I didn't include that in the history game on Outside Views Games last time, the latest video still is European history on Outside Views Games. If you haven't played it yet, have a look. Maybe you like it. And I'll see you in my next video. I'll be back.